Latino town, but even Storm Lake it's always going to have Latinos. We were there doing work for the city last week because they have 6 new ethnic groups. They have Burmese refugees, people from Micronesia, African Americans from Chicago, second-generation Hmong people from Modesto, California, moving into Storm Lake.
On top of Latinos that have been there 15 years, on top of the local white population.
And
this is the new rural
this is
America. This is the Storm Lakes of the world, the Denisons, Perry, Marshalltown, Postville. This is a new reality.
And Sudanese people who speak 9 different languages in Storm Lake.
Different tribes, different ethnicities of one country.
Did we answer your question?
Yeah.
You
So
and
it's
then you.
chaos.
Sorry, I got you. 1, 2, go. I'm sorry, you first. Go, buddy. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, you go first.
Sorry. Do you address why the federal government raided Postville? Now, there was a raid earlier that was Marshalltown, it included Montrose in Colorado and some others. But this was the biggie. Why pick this as the biggie?
Well, here's why I think it happened. In the past, here's why I think it happened. And interesting, this is in a sidebar to the Rubashkin trial. They have sued ICE to get access to their papers to understand exactly
To answer that question.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement is ICE.
The former INS group.
They have sued them. They tried to get it through Freedom of Information Act. Didn't get it. They've now sued ICE to try to get a hold of the papers to explain precisely why they did this. I think they did it principally because it's owned by a single family, and I think that it was relatively vulnerable to scrutiny. I think it was relatively vulnerable to a raid. And I think, frankly, given the political cycle, I think, a lot of people, and it's not just me, this was a devastating thing for the town of Postville. Let's not forget that. I think it was a demonstration raid. Now, there are problems there, fair enough. But now we have a new administration, and actually, this is not well covered in the press. They don't do raids anymore. They identify the people within the plants who are in the country illegally. They go to the boss and say, fire them. And just 2 days ago, this big, huge apparel company in LA fired 1,200 people. 1,200 people. So I think that's part of it.
The single ownership.
I think that's a big part of it.
More vulnerable versus arresting the management team in a Tyson's or an IVP. That's a large corporation. That's a lot harder to pull off. You have a lot of political heat.
And I think somebody in the federal government was drinking a little bit too much Kool-Aid because they believed a lot of the side force. Like there was this one website called Ion Agri. There was groups promoting that wanted to get into Agri and to break them and open up union, and they kept making these unbelievable allegations about what was going on. And there was other groups that kept making different allegations. And I think again, part of the Rubashkin's weakness was they did not have an effective tool to get the message out there. So you should see we have a clean operation. We're complying with law. We're trying to do the best we can do. And so, in the face of so much propaganda against them, I think some in the federal government, some of the people who are doing the groundwork believed a lot of these things. Because if you read the early allegations, they expect meth labs to be there, they expect gun running to be there in the printed allegations. And it was a joke. It was a complete joke. Just completely no substance to those allegations, So if that's part of the raid allegations, what were they drinking before they did the raid, And so.
Yes, ma'am, and then we'll go to you, sir. Yes, ma'am, please.
I went to Postville only after I read Stephen Bloom's book. I was curious about it.
Sure.
And I was very impressed when I went up there. And I happen to be a Lutheran, and then one of our largest Lutheran churches is in Postville.
Correct.
Yeah. So we went there, and we talked to the people in the church. They were very happy with what was going on. Now, this was about 7, 8 years ago, okay, right after the book came out. Right. And I was impressed with the town, and I thought, isn't this great? You people knew the town before the raid, I'm assuming. You said you've been up there for 10 years, is that right?
Yeah,
I live there.
He's a local, yes.
You've lived there for how long?
Pick me out, yeah.
Long time?
I'm 12 years.
12 years.
Okay.
12 years, yeah.
My question to you is, why did you write this book, and would you have written it if there hadn't been a raid? Or is it strictly as a result of the raid that took place, the reason you wrote the book?
I think the book was written sooner because of the raid.
But you think you would have written it anyway?
Absolutely.
Yes. Mark and I actually, as academics, we specialize in working in those kinds of communities, and we take a look at multicultural societies and populations, and that's something that we do as an anthropologist and as an international, global public health specialist. That's kind of what we do for a living. So for us, again, this is just sort of a very academic exercise, and we had just started to put it together in our head when we ran into Aaron one day on the street again after the raid. He was just like, "This is crazy. We're just getting, stuff." And we invited him to join us basically to provide more local perspective on it. But we have found Postville to be fascinating even without that raid. You were jokingly said, but I think it's probably true. Maybe we'll look at Storm Lake or some other communities later on, because this is the new reality. This is the new America, and a lot of people don't. We get here in this state, we know once you get out of these kinds of cities what these little places look like, but the rest of the country doesn't, and it has some pretty profound implications for us as a nation, a lot of these changing demographics. So yes, at least Mark and I as academics, we would have written it anyway, because we do this for a living.
To answer you also, I had already spoken to 2 ghostwriters before the raid, because I thought there was a beautiful story to tell about Postville. I thought there was a lot of amazing things that were working right in America, and a lot of things that Postville had accomplished, given the scenario. Some people have this holier-than-thou attitude towards Postville. When knew they were illegal, why didn't they throw them all out? Tar and feather them, get rid of them, But the whole country was filled with illegals. It's like, why would Postville, the one town in the world, be the ones that stand up and say, we're going to draw the line here, this is where the Minutemen are going to hold the ground, and Postville, and then the rest of the country, Nobody was thinking like that, because we're little people, we took the cards that were handed to us and said, let's make lemonade of this, let's make good things out of it, let's not suffer, and from that, there were so many amazing stories, so many beautiful things that happened, and so many success stories. You saw families that come in with nothing, build themselves up to the point where they got themselves educated, put their kids in schools, make them sweat bullets to accomplish things. Some of the Latino children were coming to the top of the classes. Parents that scraped together, bought themselves a house, took all the care to put their house in nice order, nice shape. I was suffering from a thing called the brain drain. I was losing all of its best and its brightest. So here's people who want to come and make Iowa a better place while at the same time enriching themselves. Now, who wouldn't think that that's an opportunity? And that's exactly the way we felt in Postville, and that's what we tried to build on. We figured if the federal government can't run their law, why should we be worried about it? So, why should we be, again, the line that's drawn there? Not that anybody in Postville advocated we should make illegal immigration. Nobody advocated bring illegals here. These people were all relatives, second cousins, third cousin, friends, and they said, Postville's a place where you could become a person. Postville's a place where you can get away from the tyranny of Guatemala and build a life and build the future. And that's an amazing story. And the federal government, trying to solve their bigger policy issue, they should have picked a place that had real problems. And then they could have gently come to Postville and say, we'd like you to fix your things, let's help you guys get status, and let's put this together right, and let's make America good again, and make things right.
Yes, sir.
I actually come from a little town not far from Postville in northeast Iowa.
Which one is that?
Elkader, which is not so far.
Rolling
And-
land over there.
Yeah. We love it.
And it was heartbreaking to read about at the time, and I know there were people in Elkader actually involved with some of the relief efforts up there. You had families torn apart, people being held. It was just a human disaster. Kids pulled out of school. And I guess what I'd like to know is your take on Postville today, and in what ways has it recovered from the raid? In what ways is it still really not recovered from the raid? And what's happening in Postville to try to heal some of the catastrophic consequences of that raid?
I'll let Aaron talk about maybe the human interactions, what's going on, but I tell you economically, because actually one of our last chapters in here talks exactly about that, sort of kind of what happened to the town after. I use the analogy of being in California, sort of the earthquake model. On the first day of the raid, you had the epicenter, the 400 Guatemalans immediately busted everything. The others ran into the church. It was like, frankly, a third world country. It was absolutely horrifying. It was the nightmare to see all that stuff going on. And then the dominoes began to fall, and you got these concentric rings of damage that happened in the town over the following days, weeks, and months. As one would fall, it would trigger the collapse of another economic system. For instance, ultimately, when the management got arrested, that's what finally led to the bankruptcy of the plant. Now you had everybody in jail, frankly, or they were in these charges, so the plant collapsed, and then you had workers there that were working, including the Jewish families. People lumped the Jews into the Jews. okay, that's from, there's a Rabashkin family. And there were Jewish families that were just there working, just like the